you all. Thank you for joining. Come on, y'all. Put in the comments. Hey, Felicia, I see you there. Go ahead and put a hashtag. Keep it victorious. We are keeping it victorious. Y'all know that is going to be my thing. That's our thing. It's going to become something that we just continue to just kind of put out there in the atmosphere. We're going to keep it victorious. It is almost 2024. It is almost a new year. We're getting ready to close out 2023. And I am excited. Again, put your name in the comment section. Let me know you're here. Hashtag keep it victorious. We are going to go ahead and get started because I want to make sure we can spend this time that we do have together just really talking about marriage, ministry, and mindset. These are like three key topics, and a lot of these topics are very dear to my heart simply because I have been called. I've been also walking alongside someone who does a lot of different things, and so ministry, mindset, marriage. It takes all those three things together. We want to make sure that we are flourishing. We want to make sure that we're prospering in the things of God as we get focused for 2023. I also want you all as you are coming in to let me know something that you are expecting and looking forward to in 20 going into 2024, and something that you are just really grateful about as we close out, as we prepare to close out the year. You all have already probably seen a flyer. I hope you have. But again, I have someone who is a lifetime partner, friend, my husband, my partner in purpose, my lifetime friend, all those things. And so I'm getting ready to bring him on so we can actually just talk tonight. I really just want to talk. I want to just kind of hear from him, let him share some wisdom in a few areas. I know he has been doing some phenomenal things, some amazing things, and I have been so grateful to just kind of come alongside and support those things that he's doing. And so I am getting ready to bring him on as well. Now, how? Here we go. Hey.
What up?
So it is good to have you on. Can you hear? I don't know if I did something wrong here.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. So listen, I don't know if you know how excited I am about you being able to close out the new year this year and get ready to transition over into a new year, and you joining me on Live from Victory. This is so exciting. I know we live together. I know we do life
We
together.
do. That is true. That is
I
very
know we
true.
do
We
all
do.
the things together, but it is still so exciting to always have you a part of, really what God is doing in my life, and just really kind of you being able to witness that journey for myself as we've kind of really been here on our own, doing it together, but also experiencing our own different journeys. And I know there are so many different things that we have learned over the course of the years. And one of the things that I don't want to do is when, I've been sharing that, we can be called, we can be anointed, we can be greatly gifted in all those things, but we are still having to live life, and when
Absolutely.
I really started to my journey of faith and being a follower of Christ, one of the things for me is, Lord, how do I take this word and apply it to my everyday life? That was one of the things. Like, how do I take the word beyond Sunday and
Mhm.
allow myself to see abundant living the way that you have declared it to us, the way that you've promised it to us? Like, what does that look like? And a lot of times when we hear that word abundance, a lot of times we really start with the external things, the materialistic things. But for myself, it was all about the spirit of God, the presence of God. And so even in all of that, but it's like, Lord, how do I bring my faith into my family, into my parenting, into my marriage, into ministry? How does faith actually work, and how do you activate that in every aspect of life? And we don't get it perfect all the time, but we are always striving and always seeking how to just continue to increase and continue to develop and continue to grow. And so I want to just also, I know you have been you just did the leaders visionary leader challenge, which
Mhm.
was great. I know I was able to be a part of that, and a lot of times, people think I live with you, but I learned so much from you. I'm challenged so much by you, and it's one thing to actually just see you doing something and I'm just
Mhm.
standing alongside watching, but it's also an opportunity for God to show me areas that I have to increase and I have to grow, so that, because I do believe that sometimes our partners introduce, pieces of our future to us and pieces of our
Mhm.
destiny to us. And so
Absolutely.
it's been great, but it's also been challenging, but I'm so thankful that I mean, everything you do, I'm able to learn, I'm able to grow, I'm able to glean. And it's not just marriage, just to be married, but we're married on purpose. And so again, we're talking about that marriage. We're going to talk about the ministry. We're going to talk about the mindset, because it takes a different mindset to truly walk out life
Mhm.
in a purposeful way, in a fruitful way. It really takes a different type of mindset. And a lot of times, in the spiritual space, I mean, in the Christian space, we'll probably say you can't use a carnal mindset, but when it's called, and because we're talking about faith, God shapes, He creates, He does something different in our mindset so that we can walk out the things that He's called us to do. And so I want to kind of open up and let you kind of give some insight into one of the things that you have truly worked through in 2023. What you're looking forward to in 2024. And I kind of want you to talk about the mindset. I want to start with the mindset. We'll open up with that and we'll probably close with that as well. But let's really talk about just the mindset, because this has kind
Yeah.
of been a unique season for the
Yeah.
both of us together and individually. And it takes a mindset to really walk through the different seasons that we sometimes encounter. And so I
Yeah.
kind of want to open up to you and let you just share a little bit now on mindset and what you're kind of challenging and wanting to see leaders and individuals, pastors, senior pastors, all the things, because you talk to all the people and you can
Yeah.
reach them all. I believe God has truly blessed you to be able to speak to all
Yeah.
leaders, no matter what capacity they lead in and no matter what space they lead in. God has given you a voice for them. And so I want to hear from you on just the
Yeah.
mindset, what you're looking forward to, where you see um, what God just doing in as He gets ready to take us over into 2024.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm super excited to be on with you. And if I hear we got a little bit of an echo, so you need to turn
Okay.
your volume down on that screen. Just reach around the back of that monitor and just turn it down. And or you could just mute yourself, until you kind of get it square. But a couple of things that I think have been huge for me. One of the things I think the Lord dealt with a lot of entitlement in me this year. I think sometimes we can have an entitlement mindset, and we not realize it, where we expect that God owes us things. We expect that people owe us things. We expect that people, owe us some of those things. You was talking about the visionary leaders challenge this past week, and one of the things that I said to one of the leaders who attended is they were frustrated. They said, "Man, I got all this vision, and people just won't get in line, and blah blah blah." And one of the things I was very clear about, and I had to really break my program for a minute to say to them, "Hey, people don't owe you anything, right? Just because you lead a church doesn't mean people owe you the right to come. Just because you have a business doesn't mean people owe you support. People don't owe you anything." And I think, we it's right for us to understand that we hope that people support us, that we want people to support us and be with us. But the truth of the matter is that we must always hold ourselves to a standard that causes us to come forward. So as we go into 2024, one of the things I'm really big on, and I talk to you about this all the time, is really controlling the things you can't control. I think there are so many things that are beyond our control. There are so many things we can't do anything about. We can't control how people see us all the time. We can't control who supports us and who doesn't. We can't control some of those things. But the reality is we must focus on doing what we can do well, developing the discipline that really looks like our future and not our past. I must begin to look like who I want to become before I become it. And I think a huge part of that is the mindset. My mindset is I remember years ago, I heard somebody say, pray like it depends on God and work like it depends on you. And I think somewhere in the middle of that, I think is truth. And I think it's this truth of I've got to have faith because without faith, I can't, it's impossible to please God, but I've got to understand that faith without works is dead. And both of those things can be true, right? Both of those things can be true. And I think really what James says to us is he tells us that, hey, look, the proof of what you believe is what you do, it's how you live. It's not just what you say. Faith is not lip service. Faith is feet in action. It's hands in action. It is really stepping into what God's called us to. And so I think a huge part of the mindset that I am really hoping that the Lord will help me grow in this year is really just understanding that He put me here to be a solution. And because He put me here to be a solution, I've got to do a great job of discerning between the things that He can do and the things that He's called me to do.
Keep it victorious. Leave it in the I'm muted. I thought I was muted. Uh Put in the chat what it is that's blessing you. Like again, just again drop it in the chat. We want to hear from you. We want to know what is blessing you from what we're talking about tonight. What you just said. I get to brag on you a lot, right? Tonight. Like this is my time. So I get to brag a
Don't make me
lot.
blush, Don't make me
Well,
blush.
I'm gonna make you blush
I turn
because
purple if I start blushing. I get purple. I get purple. Okay.
because when we talk about mindset, growing up in my dad being in the military for 20 something plus years and having three older brothers, it is you do develop a tough mindset and and even as I grew up there had to be some unlearning because when we talk about faith there are some differences that you have to shift, you have to change. And one of the things that I have loved and I'm so thankful is that you have challenged me in that area, and it's been a blessing to me. Even though there are times where it could be very, I don't want to even use the word pain. I mean, I just, just really having to shift how you think and really looking beyond the things that you want to sometimes control, but you can't. That's the other thing about, that was huge for me. And even in this year, I'm really thankful that I'm like, Lord, I'm really finding my lane. And this is where I want to thrive. And I'm trusting that you will send the people who need to hear from me and the things that you've placed in me and the words that you've given me, the ministry that you've given me. You will send the people, but let me be confident in my lane. And it's just joy to see others, doing their thing. But when it comes and when you find your lane, it just makes everything all the better, like for myself. And I'm just talking like Toya tonight. Like that's what I want to do tonight. And so when you talk about mindset, there have been many things in many areas where I could come to you. And even though I may sometimes feel like it's hard, but it's like I see what it's done for me. I see how I have grown. I see how I just don't think I could be where I am right now if you haven't been able to say some of the hard things to me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times I don't ever want people to look on the outside and see the two of us together. Where we are today, I would honestly say it's taken work. It's taken a different mindset. We've had to shift and change a lot of things about who we are, and give each other the grace to develop and to evolve and to grow. And to be honest, I think I said on the last live, I've learned so much about faith and trusting the God that I can't see through my marriage. Like I really have. I've really learned to trust God more by allowing Him to develop you into the leader He's called you to be.
Yeah.
And so while he's working in you, he's working in me, but he's doing it differently. I will never forget a time we were in Grambling, and this is when I knew. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to share this," because we did the church plan. I think we were actually getting ready to transition. We were getting ready to close the doors to the Church of the Champions, and I think I was pregnant at the time and just found out we had the miscarriage, and I was kind of in a phase where it was just an emotional thing. It was an emotional roller coaster at the time. And I never forget, and I'm saying this is the first time I've really said this out loud outside of like, outside of just our intimate space. There was a point where I was eating at the time. And that was the way that I kind of found myself grieving at that moment. And I could remember coming to you because you've been a huge person of accountability to me, even unspoken. Like you have been a person who has allowed that accountability to be, really, really there for myself. And I remember that time coming to you, and I was like, babe, I was like, I need you to actually have access to like my card and things like that, because at the time I had cash, and I found myself like when you all would go to bed at times, I would find myself leaving the house, go get something to eat, and then I'd come home and I'm like, it and here's where growth takes place. I had to recognize that that was damaging to myself, to my future, to where God wanted me to be, and to who I was as an individual. And I had to learn how to handle that in a better way. And I would never forget coming to you saying, "Hey," because I knew that if you could see it, it would challenge me in a completely different way. And I'm like, if I go and do this, I know he's going to see it. And then he's going to come say something. And I could remember bawling my eyes out. But it was in a way, it was me telling my flesh, like, no, like, we cannot do this. This is not what I'm going to do to myself, to my health. And
Yeah.
so, but again, and it's not that it's at a place of perfection, but these are the things where you start to acknowledge, like, this is where I need to shift my mindset. I can't handle life situations in this way, or I will always find myself going backwards or going back and not forward, or I'll find myself in a place of comfort, or I'd end up settling and I wouldn't press forward. And so I'm saying all that to say that it takes someone to be there to
Yeah.
push you, even when it's hard, even when it's tough, even when it's painful, when those trials of life come. There's always that sense of support that you have that's going to push you beyond that place so that you can rise up and move forward. And so those are the things that I do get to share, because a lot of times we don't really share a lot about, our lives. We kind of do things and we just keep going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I'm just so thankful that the Lord has always sent individuals, couples, of wisdom and wise counsel to pour into us at the right time of our lives. Even as we talk about marriage, I would never forget Pastor Michael Exum and Lady Valerie Exum when they sat us down and talked to us about ministry and marriage,
Yeah.
and how to prioritize the two. And I honestly feel like that saved us early on in the younger days where we were figuring out. I know you were on the visionary, the leadership challenge, and I remember hearing you saying, because, and I remember too, I was like, he was in that office like hours upon hours, like either studying or what is it that I need to be doing.
Hmm.
How do I become the pastor that the sheep need me to be, or that flock needs, that this flock that God's given me? How And I can remember those days where late nights and hours that you would spend just really investing, really researching, really studying. And a lot of times we don't hear that, but I'm here to say it because I got to see it, I got to witness it. And so, even with that, just prioritizing marriage and ministry to make sure that both are flourishing. Because if a
Yeah.
marriage flourishes, ministry flourishes. And it started with us. There were some hard decisions that we had to make. There were some things that we had to shift. And so I want to also open it up, because again, this is something that we talk about at the retreat. I can't help it. Like we
Yeah.
talk about this at the retreat, and just how to make sure that marriages thrive, just as well as ministries are thriving,
You
because it
know,
can be a challenge.
well, here's what I was saying. I think a couple of things. Um, you have to turn your volume down still.
I'll mute. I'll mute.
So I think one of the things that I think is important. I think two things when you talk about ministry and marriage. Number one, I think uh, we have to be honest about the fact that couples. I think it's important. It's a huge value when couples do things together. Couples have to do things together. I think we have to learn to see our lives as one, to understand that it's very, very rare that one of us can be committed to something without our spouses. Because it so impacts the whole family, because it so impacts everybody, it's really, really hard for one of us to be a part of something and the other not be there. And so we've got to start to see all of our things, all of our tasks as together, right? So that's just like with Simple Systems. Simple Systems is not just Henry, that's Latoya too. Living victoriously, a victorious woman, that's not just Latoya. Look, I'm victorious too. It takes a team. We have to approach it together. And I think when you do that, you kind of understand that, we have responsibility to invest in each other, right? We were listening to a clip by Miles Monroe just the other day, and he said, "Man, listen," he said, "the quality of a wife really comes down to the quality of a husband." He says, "If you look at your wife and you're not satisfied with who she is, blame yourself." And that was a hard that's a hard pill for somebody to swallow, but I think it's important. Really, what he's saying is we have the responsibility to invest in each other. We have the responsibility to invest. So I think that's one of the things that I think is very, very important. We've got to learn that we have a very vital role in the lives of our spouses. But then number two, I think it is incumbent upon every person to learn how they are motivated. I think this is so important. I think in the New Testament, when it comes to kingdom expansion and the Lord really wanted to take the church where he wanted to take it, there are two approaches that we see. All right. One approach was persecution, and the other approach was promise, right? And so persecution is where the Lord allows things in the present to get so difficult that in an effort to get away from the current persecution, you march fully into the future. So you go into the future because you're like, look, I can't stay here. This ain't working. I can't go back to what this was. And so that's persecution. That's how the church really spread in the New Testament, is that persecution breaks out into the land. Emperor Nero is killing Christians and persecuting Christians. So what do? They all go to different parts of the world trying to get away from Nero. But as a result, they take the gospel of Jesus Christ with them, right? So they end up taking Jesus with them. So one route of motivation is persecution, is that you look at where you are and you say, look, I can't stay here. That's what you just mentioned, right? Okay, I'm grieving, I'm eating. This is how I'm dealing with it. I see what it's doing to me. I see what it's doing to my health. I see what it's doing to my mindset, all these kind of things. I got to sneak around and eat. I got candy stashes all around the house, in the kitchen, I got all this kind of stuff, right? Like that's my persecution, right? It's like, look, I got to get away from this because this isn't it. The other part of that is promise, right? And promise is Paul, I believe it's Acts 15, maybe Acts 15 or 16, when he has the Macedonian call. He's sleeping and he's like, okay, I know I'm called to go fulfill this mission. So I already know Jesus has called me. He has set me aside. But God gives him a vision. He says, hey, he gets a vision of a man over in Macedonia saying, please come help us. We need you. We need you to come over here. You got to come look out for us, right? He gets that call. And that vision of what the future is going to be is what motivates Paul, right? And that's me. I'm a promise motivator, right? I see something in the future, and I'm so anxious to get to that thing in the future that I'm like, man, look, we got to go. Like, I don't care how good this is. What I see over there has the potential to be better. And so I think as in ministry and in marriage, you need to know your motivators and you need to know your spouse's motivators. You need to know like what it is that really moves one another to help go forward. But you really need to know that about yourself, because it'll help you recognize the patterns in your life. It'll help you recognize how you best discern the word and the will of God in your life. It'll help you figure out God's plan to help you get from where you are to where you're called to be. God knew Paul, and so he spoke to Paul with promise. He knew him. He knew that was one of the things that would move him, but he also knew that there were some other believers that they were never going to leave Jerusalem unless there was some kind of persecution, right? He knew that about Joseph, right? Joseph, I could give you this dream all day, but it's going to take persecution to make you leave here. Because if I told you to leave your father's house and go lay in a pit, you wouldn't go lay in a pit because that wouldn't make sense to you. If I told you to leave a pit and go to Potiphar's house where you're going to get lied on, that wouldn't make sense. So you wouldn't do that. If I told you to leave there and go to prison for 11 years and be stuck in prison, you wouldn't do it because that wouldn't make sense. And so as a result, because I know some people are different and some people have different ways that they receive and that they can operate and so on and so on, God in his sovereignty, I believe, really taps into who we know we are. And so I think his grace on our lives looks like him coming to us in the way that he knows we best receive it. And so we need to recognize, am I a promise person or am I a persecution person? Am I somebody who needs to be moving towards something or am I somebody who needs to be moving away from something? I think both of them, and I don't think it's necessarily exclusive. I think we can all be motivated by different ones at different times. But I think it's important to recognize it in our spouses and to see that maybe that's one of the ways that God leads us.
So even with that, I want you to continue on because I do. I enjoy enjoy listening to you. How do you what I want to add to that is how do you what would you say to us or those who are listening, those who may watch the replay, what would you say in finding that place of patience in the midst of the promise and the persecution? Because, and I think I would connect that with the mindset as well,
Yeah,
not necessarily moving too fast, but kind of staying. We've kind of, adopted the word rhythm, staying in the rhythm of what
yeah,
God is doing. And so, when you were saying that, I heard the word patience
yeah,
also. What does patience look like? Because for me, patient doesn't mean that I stop moving, but how would we say patient is to look in those particular moments of, for those
yeah.
who may need the person who are motivated by persecution, those who are motivated by promise, motivated by both. What does patience look like
Yeah.
in that space as well?
So I'll use another biblical kind of analogy and another biblical kind of model. So let's imagine for a moment that we are all David getting ready to go and fight Goliath. All right. So let's imagine that's who we are, right? So you're David. So somebody real quick in the chat put, I'm David. I'm David. All right. You're David. You are God's chosen. You are a man or a woman after God's own heart. God has chosen you for this specific moment, this specific time. This is who you are. The Bible says that when David was getting ready to go and fight Goliath, went down to the riverbed and he chose 5 smooth stones. He picked up 5 stones. Now, why specifically he picked up 5, I don't know. Maybe it was something about his experience that taught him that 5 was preparation. We often talk about 5 as the number of grace. We talk about it really just as grace being that space where God steps up after I run out. Where He covers that remainder, if you would, right? Whatever it may be. So let's imagine for a moment you're David and you're choosing five smooth stones because you're getting ready to defeat Goliath. Now let's imagine for a moment that Goliath is 2024. And let's imagine for a moment that those 5 smooth stones are areas in your life that are non-negotiable. I think a part of where patience come in is us realizing that if I'm going to go into this battle, these are the smooth stones that I must have close to me. And here's how I look at that. And this is something that we started talking about, and we're going to talk about some more tonight as the new year gets ready to roll in. One of the things that we're going to talk a little bit more about is what are those areas that we've really got to lean into, right? So I like to break my life down into multiple areas as we go into in the new year. So I'm thinking spiritually, I'm thinking marriage, I'm thinking family, I'm thinking financial, I'm thinking business, I'm thinking intellectually. I'm thinking about these different physically, I'm thinking about these different areas of my life where I need focus. And here's where patience is. Patience is the ability to say, I'm David going to fight Goliath. But I got to realize that what I'm getting ready to do goes beyond this moment. It's realizing that yes, I'm going to go fight Goliath, but I already know that my time is coming. I already know that I'm called by God. So there's a life on the other side of this battle. And so I go into this battle not saying I got to win at all costs. It doesn't matter what it costs me. No, no, no. I go into this battle saying, hey, look, I'm going to win this battle. But here are the things that's got to stay intact. Here are the things that I've got to be aware of. Here are the things that I really got to lock into. And I think that's what patience does. Is patience helps us to see the big picture. It helps us to see that there is more after this. That this is just a battle. It's not the whole war. And so as a result, I've got to be patient. I've got to even be patient with myself in those moments where I feel like I lose a battle or two, when it feels like I fail, when it feels like I fall short, right? Because just like you were talking about your battle with food, I've been very clear about my battle with stuff like pornography in the past, right? Like that was the battle I had to come through, but I had to realize the reason for that battle is because there was something on the other side of it that God was really bringing us into, that He was bringing us towards, and as we wrestle with those things, we both had similar kind of experiences. It just kind of came at us different ways, but a part of our freedom too to come back to marriage was in coming to each other, right? With both of those challenges that we went through in different seasons of life, a part of the solution was coming to each other and saying, hey, look, God sent you here to help me, so I need your help. I need your accountability. I need your support. I need you to be a part of my solution. I need all of those different things. And I think that's one of the things for me, to even just think about going into this new year, that gets me excited is, we're stepping into a new year, but we've got more unified plans because we realize, there's strength in numbers. There's strength when we're standing back to back. We really increase our ability to stand, right? If I'm trying to change how I eat, what better way than to have my spouse eating the same way? So that way, I'm not over here talking about, hey, look, I'm doing the keto diet. I can't have no bread, no sugar, no nothing. And I come in the house and you eat sweet potato pie, right? I'm on fall. I'm struggling, right? And
So,
so,
so if you don't mind, I'm gonna interrupt right there and kind of share what like we're getting ready to do. I think it's the 75-day challenge that we're getting ready to do. And you
yeah,
ask y'all, he asked if I would do it, and I'm gonna be honest, it was my first one. I said, as long as you don't talk about me if I start crying. Because when you are breaking out of a place of comfort, it hurts, it really hurts. It stretches. And so I'm not saying like I'm crying because like, oh, I'm weak, I can't do this. But when those tears come from like you're fighting through something, like you're pressing through that an area where you really would just where you've been so comfortable in and you've just been settled in, and so just really pressing through that space and pressing through that place to actually see the results, the fruit of that
yeah,
obedience and that work you put in. Because as you said, it's impossible to please God without faith. But I had to also learn that faith also takes work. The difference when it comes down to faith and works is that my works have to be in alignment with what God has called me to do. That's when I see the fulfillment and the fruit of what it is that that I've been purposed to do, is making sure that it's not what I want to do, but making sure I'm aligning myself with what God has called me to do, that vision that you talked about, the promise that you shared earlier. And so that was really good. I just felt like I just wanted to share that because
yeah,
sometimes we all have to have a starting place. Even in doing these lives, you have been on me about doing lives. Like,
mhm,
hey, you go, and I know I'm like, babe, but you have been doing this so long. Like, but Toya, like you already doing it. Just
yeah,
get online and go. But I'm like, I don't know, like I can't. And so even just starting, which is why sometimes I'm just always thankful and I'm always saying, hey, like I appreciate you so much because you really push me beyond. You see in me and you pull that out of me and you've learned the unique ways that I learn and I grow and how I'm challenged because we're both athletes. And so there's that it's a unique push that you're able to just give and just work through that. And so I wanted to share that because there are some who's kind of, sometimes we don't go because we think about, what am I going to lose? But what if I shift to say, what am I going to gain? What more am I going to gain from letting this go so that I can move forward into seeing something so much greater than what I'm seeing right now? Like, yes, this is great, but there's so much more. And even in me saying that, and we're talking about mindset, and I know we're talking about those three things in not any particular order. But one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking is letting go of the opinions of others as you are elevating, as you are increasing, as you are growing. That can sometimes be painful as well, just really kind of moving beyond what you're used to. How do we navigate those pieces of transition, or those pieces when we're getting ready to move forward? And because I know I do, I talk to you about that a lot. I don't like leaving people behind. Like, if I could take everybody with me, like come on, and that's one of the things. It goes back to what you said. Like, I can't force anyone, because I am not God. I am not Holy Spirit Jr. I am not any of that. But when you do plant the seed in a life, then you have to trust that the word is alive, and the word will begin to do a work that you could not do, but we can continue to pour. But how do we navigate? How do we make sure we don't, if we're making leaps and bounds right now as we leap over into 2023, how do we make sure we keep that momentum with not getting stuck? Or because we know our past will sometimes chase us and try to stay out in front of us, how do we make sure we keep pressing forward? Does that sometimes, is it always by yourself? Is it making sure you're around a group of people who are going in the same direction? What does that look like?
Yeah. I would say a couple things. I think if you're going into this new year and you want to see 2024 become one of the best years you've ever had, and you want to see it be this ultimately fruitful year and this really amazing time for you to drive forward, I think there was a couple of things that I would say to you. Number one, I would say get crystal clear about who God has called you to be. Sometimes we focus on what God has called us to do, and we forget that what we do is always a byproduct of who we are. And so you need to get clear about describing who God has called you to be. One of the questions that I shared with Latoya and that I had her wrestle through and I wrestled through is, what are three words that you want to use to describe yourself by the end of 2024? You need to get clear on who you feel like you're called to be, who you believe God has called you to be, what that looks like in your life. So I think that's very, very important. Number two, I think you need to find your tribe. You need to find the group of people who can help you become who you're called to be. And I don't mean that they have to teach you everything, but they at least understand and embrace who you're becoming. I think there are some circles that we spend too much time in where they ridicule who God has called us to become. They make us feel bad for becoming who God wants us to be. And when we stay in those circles, in those situations, what it does is that it just slowly puts to death our will and our drive to do what God has called us to do. So I think we need to get clear on who God has called us to be. We need to learn to recognize a tribe that embraces that, and recognize that circle of friends that embraces that, recognize that. But then number three, you need to put together a plan to get there. I say this to leaders all the time. Vision is not enough. Vision is just a description of what the future will look like when we get there. But strategy is how we're going to get there. You need strategy. It can't just be, man, this is the kind of church we're going to be. This is the kind of marriage we're going to have. This is the kind of life I'm going to build. That's good. And you need that. Don't get me wrong. But now you've got to move beyond that to say, now, okay, here are the steps I'm going to take to get there. All right. I'm not going to sit here right now and just say, hey, look, my vision is that by the end of 2024, I'm going to look like I looked in college. So I'm going to be 3% body fat. I'm going to have muscles everywhere. I'm going to be able to see my abs again for the first time in 20 years. Like, it's going to go down, right? That's vision. Strategy is, okay, I gotta change how I eat. I gotta eat differently, right? I gotta commit to this keto diet because I know in the past I've done keto and it does my body responds really well to it. That's the diet I'm gonna commit to. Here's how often I'm going to the gym. I'm gonna go work out. This is my workout plan. I'm not just going to the gym aimlessly, but here's my plan, right? I'm not just going, oh, I'm just going to walk this year. Well, walk how much? How far you going to walk? How often you going to walk? Are you going to walk when it's cold outside? Because you're going to have a couple days where it's going to be cold. And are you still going to get up and go outside, right? All those different things are strategies. So you need to know who you're called to be. You need to know the group of people that are called to help you get there. You need to have a strategy for get there to get there. And then you really got to find your why. You got to find your why. And I mentioned this earlier. Is it persecution or is it promise? Like you got to figure out what is it that what is the reason that it is so important that you follow through on what God has given you the opportunity to do. You have to find your why. You got to find a reason that's going to make you get up out of the bed every morning. You got to find a reason, right? You got to find that reason. You got to figure it out. Like right now, I'm thinking about, just like health and stuff like that, and a huge part of my reason is that, I look at, and over the course of my life, I've had different health challenges and, not a whole bunch of them, but the ones that I've had have been serious. And when I look at them now, I look at my daughters and I look at those girls and I go, I need to be healthy enough to walk them all down the aisle, but I also need to be healthy enough to raise the grandsons and the granddaughters that they're gonna give me to help raise them. Right? I ain't gonna say raise them, Lord no, because I'm gonna be free as a bird. But I need to be able to help raise him. Right? I need to be healthy enough. I got all girls, so if I get a grandson, I need to be healthy enough to take him out in the yard and say, all right, I'm gonna teach everything I've been holding on to all these years. I'm gonna teach you how to play ball, boy. Come on over here. I need to be healthy enough to do that, right? And so you've got to understand what it is, right? If some of you have health issues that run in your family, right? You've seen your mother and your father and your grandparents wrestle with these different health issues, and you've got to decide, man, do I go down that same path or do I do something different? And so you got to find your why and you got to figure out what it takes to get from where you are to where you need to go. And I think as you do those four things, I think they all really come together to help you get to the other side.
Yes, what was the one thing that kind of blessed you in that? Was it knowing who God's called you to be, find your tribe, know your why? Drop that in the comments. Let us know that you're hearing what you're working on. What is it that you want to see God do in your life? I know also we were talking about marriage, but I also want to. I'm thinking about my singles too, because sometimes we have those individuals who are single, may
Yeah.
be looking forward to getting married, or may just kind of be settling in right there. And that's the other thing that, we have to kind of talk more about more too as well is just singles. And I know that was something that we talked about at research. We had someone to come and share about, just share to the single community. And I would also just say, hey, when you're single, I learned from married couples when I was single, because it taught me a lot. When you're single, it was also a space where you kind of really get to know yourself a lot more. And for myself, when I was single in that phase, I know sometimes, when I look back now, you can want to rush so much. You
Yeah.
feel like you got to be on this certain, time frame. Like I need to be here by this age. I need to be here by this age. And I'm gonna be honest, I stepped into my 40s last year, and like it's just been a completely new thing. I've been so excited. It's like finding life all over again. If I would say, even in marriage, but at the same time, it's just something different. But even to the singles, what's the words you would share with them?
Yeah.
At this time, because again, during the end of the year, people are really kind of reflecting, thinking through, what all 23 has brought. Sometimes, people probably have mourned through the whole year. There are those who've rejoiced and mourned through the whole year. There are some who may be facing this new year without loved ones that they expected to be here. And so there's so many different things that are going on in people's lives at this time. And even for those who may be single going into another year feeling stressed out, like this is another year I have to go, forward, and I'm waiting on that perfect person or that perfect individual. When it comes down to mindset, because that's what I would speak to
Mhm.
that individual, especially in that particular stage of life. What's something that you would share? Because I
Yeah.
have you on, and I want you to kind of speak to that.
Yeah.
I can't remember that sermon you did way back in Grambling that was like so good, but it spoke to singles who were thinking about getting married, or just kind of, but it really kind of spoke to just life, singleness and marriage in a biblical way. And I can't remember what it is, but what would you speak to that or share with that single person, that's kind of
Yeah.
thinking through that thought process right now?
Well, I would say to them a lot of the same stuff that I would say to our marriage. But let me preface it by saying this. First of all, Latoya and I have been married for feels like a long time now. We're coming up on 17 years, right? But I want to share this because I think it's important for you to know our view on singleness. We don't see singleness as a waiting room for marriage. Like we don't see singleness as just, oh, I'm just waiting until I get married. We believe that singleness is a time of purpose. It is a time that you can rest in. And we don't believe every person has to be married. As a matter of fact, we have both established that if something happens to either one of us for whatever reason, like we stand single for the rest of our lives. Like that's just us. Not because we don't like marriage. We love marriage. I mean, we are all in on it. But we understand though exactly what it is and what it takes to build. And after having it with each other, we're like, look, if something happens to me, like you got, we that's how we approach it. So I think it's important for you to know that. But the biggest thing I would say to you the same thing that I say to our married people. You need to know who God has called you to be. You cannot wait for a relationship to define that for you. A relationship can help you, but it cannot make you. You only have one maker, and you got to go back to the manufacturer and figure out who you are. You got to go back to the one who made you, and that is God Himself. And so you need to find out who He's called you to be. That's the first thing. But then number two, you still need to find your tribe. You need to find a group of people who help you get to wherever you're trying to go. If you are single and you want to stay single, that is perfectly fine. But find some people who can help you be a healthy single. If you're single and you want to be married, that's perfectly fine. But go and find you some healthy married friends who can help you move in the right direction. I think one of the craziest things that we do in our lives is we listen to people who have the opposite of what we're trying to get. That don't make sense to me, right? You got to make sure that you find people, and it's so easy in this world to find people who have not yet dealt with their heartbreak, their heartache, and their bitterness. And if you're not careful, they will pour from their bitter cup and they will pour it into you. And the next thing you know, you'll be sitting around looking at people crazy, and you'll be sitting around with that negativity on you, not realizing that maybe God has something different for you. And so you've got to make sure that you get connected with a tribe of people who are really going to help you get to where you're trying to go. And then I would say also get a strategy. Get a strategy to thrive in whatever it is you're called to do in your life. If you're single and you want to stay single, get a strategy to thrive in your ministry, to thrive in your business, in your career, in your health. You ought to be the best version of yourself. Because I'm telling you right now, you got more time than you'll ever have in your life. Because once you start to bring in marriage and kids, it takes so much of your life to maintain that it becomes a challenge. So really put a strategy to becoming the best version of yourself. Treat yourself like you expect others to treat you in the future, all those kind of things. If you're planning to get married, then you need to have a strategy, right? You need to have a strategy. Like, how do you meet people? Where will you go to meet people? How will you present yourself? How will you do this? Latoya mentioned, how I used to preach on singleness. I used to be real rough back then. And I used to be on top of I used to be on top of my guys. Like, look, man, don't go walking in Walmart with your sweatpants hanging all down and your feet out in them slides and your feet look all busted and crusted and all this kind of stuff like that and thinking you finna find somebody. I would be on the ladies. Look, don't go out that house in that bonnet. You better not go out that house in them pajamas. We don't do that. Every time you go somewhere. I said, because you never know when you might cross paths with look at Britt. Britt said, yes, you were. You never know when you might cross paths. Because I told him, I said, listen, I gotta treat y'all like my kids right now, so I gotta tell you the truth. But I would say have a strategy, but then really find your why. Like get clear on, why it is that you've got to get to where you're called to go in your life. And I would say really, really commit to it. I want to be clear about this. Single does not mean alone, right? Single does not mean alone. Single simply means unmarried. Single does not mean alone. It simply means that either I have chosen or for this specific season, I don't have a spouse. But it doesn't mean I'm alone. It means that I can lean into family, I can lean into friendships, I can lean into committed relationships that can really help me get to where I need to go. And so, whoever you are, wherever you are, I think it's important that you embrace who God has called you to be and why He's called you to be it.
So good. And I know we are almost like running out of time, and I want to make sure we don't go over because, people may have plans for
We got
tonight.
watch night service tonight. We got to go to watch night.
And so I'm always I just want to say that I'm thankful that you all have joined tonight from Live from Victory. This is one of the spaces where again I get to share who a lot about who I am and what helps me keep life victorious, what helps keeps me victorious. And there have been defeats, there have been victories, but at the end of the day, as long as I am centered, have centered my life in Christ, I am a victorious woman. And I want to let you know that you are a victorious woman as well. It starts with the identity and maintaining that victory by remembering who you are in Christ and what He's done for you and who He has called you to be. I think it was Paul. He always says, "Follow me as I follow Christ." When you find a person who's following Christ, you best believe you are going to see a life of fruitfulness and a life that is flourishing and prospering in the things of God. And so those are the things that you want to seek out. And Henry, one of the things that I do want to say, because you did a lot of hard teaching back then, but you did it in a way that showed others that you wanted to see God's best for them. And
Mhm.
it is very difficult to kind of, you risk teaching real truths because
Absolutely.
sometimes you never know if people are going to come back, and either you want to hold on to the people for your own self gratification, or you want to let the people go so that they can fulfill the will of God on their life. And I have always been so grateful that you are going to give what's right, what's God, so that people can see God's will in their life. And I think that is what helps others just kind of find that inspiration and that motivation and that life to know that I have a reason to wake up in the morning. Like, this is what I have been set here in the earth to do. And when you
Mhm.
catch that revelation, it changes everything for you, regardless of how difficult life gets, regardless of the challenges that you have to go through. When you find that God thing, like, everything changes. It's almost as if you can find the grace to get through whatever it is you're going through, because He even Himself will shift your mindset, how you think, and how you see situations, how you see storms. He will teach you not to just see the storm itself, but see how He's working in the storm, see how He's moving in the trial. God will show you Himself in all of those different areas when
Mhm.
you begin to stand in that posture and have that lens of faith and say, God, what are you doing? I see this in front of me, but I know you're at work. And I don't know what I have been, this word has been in my spirit for the last 2 weeks: reversals, 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 kingdom reversals, kingdom reversals. And this is something that I'm still thinking through. I'm still pondering on, because I'm like, Lord, like, kingdom reversals, those things, when I tell you, when they happen and you see them, that is seeing God work in the midst of something that was not meant to turn out for your good, but God has shifted it, He's turned it, and He's doing something so great. And that is what I'm thinking and praying for all of you going into 2024, that God is going to shift some things in your life so that you can see that His hand
Mhm.
has been upon your life the entire time. You've been looking at the storm, you've been looking at the trial, you've been stressed out, you have been lost in everything that has been going on around you. But when God reveals Himself, you are going to see that it has been God at work the entire time. And I don't know, that word has been just stirring. And it's like I've seen these all throughout the Bible, all throughout the Bible. What you meant for evil, God turned it for my good. I consider that a divine reversal that is happening. And I know that we're going to see some great things in 2024. Henry, I thank you. I mean, I can call you husband, I can call you apostle, I can call you pastor, I can call like we can call you many different
Listen, I've been called a lot worse. So, you call me whatever you want.
but I want to thank you so much for being able to be on this live with me tonight. Because again, when people see me, they see a part of you. When God gave me you, He gave me. When God gave me you, we share each other. Our gifts are now intertwined. We become one, and I've just really enjoyed seeing the journey that God has taken us on together and individually, and us being able to have the grace to withstand all the things that we've had to work through. And I also wanted you to be here because I never want anyone to think that just because they see the smiles and what we have right now, this has been work. It has been a graceful
Mhm.
work, but the Lord again has put us in the right situations, in the right places, at the right time to make sure that He's always had us covered. And so I thank you all so much for joining. I want to say Happy New Year to you now because we're about to just kind of hang out tonight and just enjoy each other's company right here under this roof. And so I'm excited about it. And so again, we will be maybe changing the dates. But before we do, I do want you all to take advantage of the Visionary Leadership Challenge that we just did a couple of days ago. I think it's not only just for leaders. Am I correct? Can others also be a part of that? Is there a link?
Absolutely.
I know. Is there a link? I know. Let me tell
Yep.
y'all, when this going on, I may not always be on screen, but I'm somewhere with my ear tuned in, my ear listening and writing down some notes and things. And I know one of the key things and the challenges that that I wrote down for my homework is I'm always working on my mindset in one way or another. I'm always working on my mindset, but now I'm also partnering that with my health. And so those are
Mhm.
the two top priority areas that I'll be working on. And I'm saying that publicly. And I also understand some of the things that'll try to distract me from that. But that's where that mindset comes in. The last thing that I'm doing is I'm also cleaning up my timelines. Y'all, there are a lot of different things that you can see on Instagram, on social media. It's just so many things being put out there. But here's what I would also encourage you to do: clean up your timeline so that it can also look like where you're trying to go. One of the things that I have been looking at is, just so many different memes and just different things out there. It's kind of like I don't want to even let my mind. I don't even want that to enter my mind because when I am doing the will of God and walking in who God's called me to be, there are a lot of things that I really do not care about because again, it is God who is the rewarder of my faith. It is not man. Promotion comes from God and God alone. Although God uses people to works through people, but it is done in a godly way. It is done through from God, and it is done purposefully. And so I am going to leave also with that is clean up your timelines. Make sure that you are just aligning everything in your life with what you are wanting to see God do and where you're trying to go, where you're trying to be. And that is a powerful thing. When you get your mind in alignment with what God wants to do in your life, it shifts so much. And so I want to encourage you to stay victorious, keep it victorious, live victoriously. And you all know you can meet me back here. Stay connected. Instagram, Facebook. I know we have to change a few things here. Also, I think someone mentioned a typo that was right on here, but I'll get that changed. I haven't been too worried about a lot of things, but we'll get that situated. But I will let you know if we're going to change the dates because we also have some other things that'll be coming up. And so, but I will let you all know. But I look forward to seeing you all on next Sunday. So we will do this again. If there are any changes, again, stay connected so you can make sure that you are live, that you are here, and that we are going to continue to pour and continue to do all the things so that we can be all that God has created us to be, and that we can continue to be prosperous and flourish in our individual lives just as we do in our other spaces as well. And so, blessings to you all. I love you all. And Henry, I'm gonna let you close us out tonight.
All right. Well, look, I just want to say to you, I hope that this new year is a blessed year for you. I hope this new season is a fruitful season, and I hope that you really take everything that God has allowed you to go through over the last few years, few months, few weeks, and you really allow God the space to make it turn out for your good. All right. I just want to say a quick word of prayer, and then I'll let you go. Father, I pray over every person under the sound of my voice that you would meet them where they are, but that you would usher them into where you have called them to be. Let this year be the best year that they have ever experienced for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Listen, God bless. Until next time, keep it victorious. Come on, look at that.
And I'll say, look, keep the gears turning.
Peace.
Bye, y'all.